Hello and welcome to today's webinar. It's coming to you from the lands of the Boonwurrung and the Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and I wish to begin by paying my respects to Indigenous elders past, present and emerging, and welcome you today to this co-presentation between Trisnasari Fraser and myself. And it reflects a body of work that we've been doing on an ARC discovery project about intercultural music engagement. And so Trisna is going to begin, and then I will pick up in a little while. So over to you, Trisna.
I'll be presenting about an integrative literature review of intercultural music engagement programs for adults, which was prepared with co-authors Dr. Alex Crook and Professor Jane Davidson. So the rationale for this investigation was to better understand how music might facilitate intercultural understanding and connection, particularly in the context of increased cultural diversity in many parts of the world and global concerns requiring understanding and cooperation across constituencies. As a social custom found across cultures, while also demonstrating cultural variation, music has been applied to promote intercultural understanding, but our knowledge of the processes and challenges involved is dispersed across disciplines. A primary aim of gathering this knowledge was to inform the development and evaluation of programs for adults using intercultural music engagement for social connection and intercultural understanding. We defined intercultural music engagement as the act of encountering cultures through engaging with music, including individual or collective listening, performing, composing, improvising, and dancing. So numerous related literature reviews provided a starting point for our investigation. These include reviews that consider the link between music and health and well-being, some broadly, and some specifically among migrants and asylum seekers and refugees. Other related reviews include the role of music in ethnic identity formation in diaspora, music in peace building and violence in the context of intergroup conflict, and finally, music activity was prominent in a literature review considering the role of participatory arts in fostering social capital. These reviews come from a range of disciplines, including social psychology, cross-cultural psychology, sociology, cultural studies, ethnomusicology, and peace studies, and therefore they draw on a range of theoretical bases. Dingle and colleagues refer to Tajfel and Turner's social identity theory that theorizes how behavior is influenced by the processes of social categorization, social identification, and social comparison. Lynette and Sunderland refer to the social and cultural determinants of health perspective, where music is associated with strong links to cultural practices and identities associated with heritage. And Lidskog's review is likewise about diasporic communities forming around cultural practices associated with homelands. These theoretical bases certainly help to understand the social function of music, but they also point to the capacity for music to create a boundary around a social identity rather than a bridge. Dakin and colleagues' review indeed noted that there was more evidence for participatory arts to create a bonding rather than a bridging function in building social capital. There were theoretical bases that applied more to intercultural music engagement though. Henderson and colleagues referred to Berry's acculturation strategies of assimilation, separation, marginalisation and integration, and his body of work that suggests integration, participating in both heritage culture and the new host culture, is optimum for well-being. Other theoretical bases foregrounded in Lidskog's review acknowledge the possibility of multiple belongings and identities, including Hall's theorisation about the production of cultural identity among diasporic communities, and Verdefeck's concept of superdiversity that acknowledges diversity not only between but within ethnic groups. So although many systematic review methodologies require comparable theorisation and measurement of outcomes across studies, in the area of cross-cultural study, this can be problematic. Sarah Kallio has argued that cultural differences in the way music and health are conceptualised makes a case for complementing psychological with ethnomusicological inquiry in this field. And likewise, Berry and colleagues argued that cross-cultural psychology should include not only cultural partners, but also disciplinary partners. So this quote is on the slide here is Berry and colleagues, and they write, "This is an important scientific niche to occupy since human problems and hence the possibility of achieving human well-being are obviously not uniquely psychological. Many contemporary issues have arisen because of social and political changes such as decolonisation, colonisation and globalisation, sometimes verging on neo-colonisation." So to understand the knowledge generated across disciplines in this field, we conducted an integrative review. The review aimed to determine, number one, what has been written over the last 10 years about intercultural music engagement among adults, and number two, what theoretical bases underpin the research, and how is music understood to contribute to intercultural understanding and social connection. It followed a method for integrative reviews described by Russell that included problem formulation, data collection or literature search, evaluation of data, data analysis, and interpretation and presentation of results. There were 4 search strategies employed, including firstly, applying inclusion criteria to databases, secondly, searching reference lists of relevant articles, number 3, using author topic knowledge, and number 4, consultation with other experts to identify literature related to specific programs. The first strategy involved searching 6 databases that are listed there in February, March and August 2022 using the search string that's displayed there. Inclusion criteria comprised full-length articles, book chapters or reports written in English no earlier than 2012 that described activities for adults that used intercultural music engagement to facilitate social connection and intercultural understanding. 31 studies were included in the review, including 26 qualitative case study analyses, 1 quasi-experimental mixed method analysis, 3 mixed method case studies, and 1 experimental quantitative studies. And they were from across the disciplines of psychology, musicology, ethnomusicology, community music, pedagogy, leisure, health, business, and performance studies. Intercultural music engagement occurred in community programs, festivals, orchestras, choirs, tertiary curriculum for music students and pre-service teachers, and in a designed research experiment. The quality of the literature was appraised according to a criteria for qualitative literature described by Spencer and colleagues, which included 18 questions evaluating the quality of findings, design, sample, data collection, analysis, reporting, reflexivity and neutrality, ethics and auditability. And for mixed method or quantitative literature, as suggested by Spencer and colleagues, other quality criteria was added, drawing on a qualitative assessment tool for quantitative studies. Quality was generally considered to be medium. An overview of all papers was collated, including the nature of the program, the sample or population being investigated, the research method and design, the analysis, and the theoretical bases and main findings. Theoretical foundations corresponded to three broad categories, including those that considered social interaction and identity, those that considered the context of the interaction, and finally, those that considered qualities of music. Three theories widely cited across the studies relating to social interaction and identity included Allport's intergroup contact theory, Small's concept of musicking, and Wenger's community of practice. Theories about the context of the interaction were common in the community music, pedagogy, and leisure literature. These included theories about the optimum way to facilitate intercultural music engagement, including Higgins' principle of hospitality in community music and Cohen's framework for reconciliation through the arts. Other theories about context included Bolno's idea of encounter in pedagogy, Turner's ideas of liminality in communitas, and Case and Hunter's counter-space framework that considers the role of settings in adaptive responses to oppression. Other theoretical bases considered qualities of music and music transmission, including Schipper's 12 continuum transmission framework and the intercultural music capacities model by Lee and colleagues. There were several studies that considered music activity as a form of tacit knowledge exchange. Prominent themes across the studies included meeting, transformation, belonging, barriers, value of music, and digital platforms. All studies considered encounter between culturally different identities and with culturally different songs and instruments. Participants were exposed to culturally different ways of sharing or transmitting music practice. Sometimes music transmission occurred through culture bearers, people indigenous to the source of the music tradition. Transformation included shifts in understanding, attitudes, behaviour, and identity. Intercultural music engagement was observed to facilitate understanding of other cultures, with a corresponding shift in attitudes, either towards specific cultural identities or more generally promoting an appreciation for diversity. Apart from increasing understanding of others, increased awareness of difference allowed participants to understand their own cultural identities and practices in a broader context. Belonging was a prominent theme across the studies. However, there was a tension between universality and acknowledgement of difference. Inclusion and acceptance of diversity was discussed as an important factor in fostering belonging. For barriers, language was noted as a barrier to intercultural music engagement, but on the other hand, differences in language were also framed positively as an act of resistance for marginalised groups, and also helping each other with pronunciation represented an opportunity for building understanding and connection. Difficulties also emerged from negotiating tonal differences in musical styles, and the meaning of lyrics had potential to create discord if they were written in particular political contexts to reinforce in-group and out-group differences. So despite acknowledgement of these barriers, there was a common perception that music transcended language and cultural boundaries. On the other hand, the culturally embedded nature of music was central to its utility in fostering intercultural understanding. Music was understood to operate on non-verbal, affective, and embodied experiential levels. And then finally, digital platforms supported music engagement during COVID-19 lockdown, extended reach, and helped to maintain contact and provide opportunity to deepen the exchange between participants. So finally, a consideration of the impact of this study and its limitations. First of all, the exclusion of non-English literature may contribute to a bias towards Western conceptualizations of intercultural music engagement, and it also means that the review isn't exhaustive. Predominance of case studies. So on the one hand, it's not widely generalizable, but on the other hand, local knowledge of contexts is really important. So case studies are an appropriate approach. And as for impact, the review could inform theories of change and program logics for similar interventions seeking to use intercultural music engagement for social connection. However, given the context-specific nature of such programs, ideally intervention design should take place in collaboration with those populations for whom they are designed.